Hi, this is Bob Weiss. I'm the host of Shaking Your World. Cheers.
Folks, welcome home. We are yet again at Shakers with another edition of the Shaking Your World concept. Today we have a very old friend of both mine and the house. Brian Mahany, big shot attorney, is in town for a moment, and oddly enough, I think we're going to talk about things other than the law. We might touch upon that a little bit. But Brian, first and foremost, welcome home. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is always my come home spot every time I get back to Milwaukee.
Always happy to see you, my friend. So, I hear that last night you were talking to Patrick about some ghosty type things. You want to?
Yes, I have the best ghost story ever from this place, and there are a lot of ghost stories from here. So, for people that don't know me, I lived in Milwaukee from 2007 until March of 2014. And it was either in 2007 or 2008, back when the economy was bad. It was a quiet winter night on a weekday and late. And there was two of us in the bar. There was a bartender, I think her name was Kelly, and myself, and we were sitting on this side of the bar. She was sitting on this side of the bar because it was empty. It was near closing time and dead of winter. And so there was no noise, there was nothing going on, but you could hear the distinctive footsteps coming up from the basement. And it was distinctive, it was loud. So loud that both of us looked at one another. The door was open, I got up and looked down the steps, and there was nothing there. Kind of freaked out the bartender a little bit. I was okay. I don't know why I would freak out a bartender because they're working in a haunted bar, but we sat back down at the bar, and the next thing you know, the faucets came on in the sink behind the bar, full force, and there was nobody here. That freaked out the bartender so much, he said, I'm locking up and we're going home. And that was that, but it wasn't just the footsteps, it was that faucet coming on, and there's no rational, logical explanation for that.
Hey, welcome to Shakers. These things do happen here, and
Yeah, well,
I had experienced that.
Yeah, I had always heard ghost stories here, but I was never one to. I mean, I've been in the basement before. Sure. Obviously, I've never been in the ladies' room, so I never met Elizabeth. And you heard it and you believed it because there's so many people that have experienced it, but I never did until that night. So if I wasn't a believer before then, I was certainly a believer after that.
That is a great story. Any other things here?
Yeah, I mean, this is just the come home place. I mean, this is the place where everybody remembers your name. There's not even though there's a fair amount of tourists here, there's a fair amount of locals here. I mean, certainly all the business leaders come here, the lawyers, the politicians, the police officials, and you can come back in here after being gone for 10 years and you'll see people that you know. Plus a healthy crowd of tourists, so there's always a new conversation to be had and whatnot. And I walked in here yesterday and it was like walking into home.
I'm honored you say that. I mean, it is a phenomenal mix of people. Obviously, my staff has been phenomenal in 30 years. I mean, the faces and names might change, but the core is there. And just this incredible group of clients that we've had, some since day one, that keep coming in. But as you said, the infusion of constant new talent is really what makes everything gel here. And the tours, of course, if you look at the average ghost tour, and you saw some of those last night, so the average tour goer is probably 25 to 40, is female, is educated, and might or might not bring their boyfriends or husbands along with, but it is an interesting dynamic to have these young women, the vibrant young women, and you get some of the old guys like you and I that are sitting here and smoking.
Yeah, we are old guys now.
Well, it's happened, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Yeah. Cool. So, how long are you in for?
Just in town for a couple days.
Okay.
It was Labor Day weekend. I hadn't been to Milwaukee since last year. Summer was starting to end. It was cooler weather here when I left Texas. It was 113 degrees. I saw the forecast here. Tomorrow is going to be a high of 62. So that's a little bit cooler, but it was a welcome change, and I figured I'd come up for Labor Day weekend.
Snow in Denver this week. Can you believe that?
Hard to believe.
My gosh. Yep. All right, well, enough of that. So, the legal profession, you have been at the top of the pecking order for some time. You started out, well, I mean, it's your story to tell, not mine, but you have an experience on both sides of the table, as it were. You were a law enforcement officer for a while. You were
For several years, yes.
Years, yeah.
So I went to law school first. A lot of cops are cops, and then they ultimately go to law school
Sure.
later in their career.
Sure.
I did the opposite way around. I was a
Of course.
police officer, full-time police officer while I was in law school.
Okay.
Graduated law school, and then had careers back and forth in between law and law enforcement. I am blessed in that I've had a fortunate career in that I've done anything that I've ever wanted to do. I know so many people, particularly lawyers, that just, they're not miserable, but they're not happy.
Not happy. Right.
And I've always done what I wanted
Yeah.
to do. I'm too old now to do the law enforcement anymore. It was a great ride. I don't want to go out as a court security officer or something like that, so back to practicing law.
Well, and you have really cracked the nut in so many ways on the legal profession and the marketing of the legal profession that has opened all sorts of avenues and doors, and you have gotten yourself, from my perspective at least, into a real hybrid of the type of law that you have practiced. That, obviously, like anything else in life, you seize an opportunity, you work diligently to get that opportunity, and then you really made it hum, and you've done extraordinarily well with some major cases in the country.
Yes, so I'll try to do the whole story in 5 minutes or less. I moved to Milwaukee from Maine in January of 2007, in the dead of winter. Although the winter here is a little bit better than it is in Maine, I realized in Maine I was a big fish in a small pond. Wisconsin may be a flyover state, but it's a little bit more opportunity than in Maine.
Sure.
I took a job here as a partner in a little four-lawyer shop that did white-collar defense for celebrities. I mean, well-known celebrities. That firm disbanded in 2009. So here I was, bought a big house in Delafield that was underwater. It took me a few years to move out of here, but I just decided, okay, that firm ended on 4th of July, and that was my Independence Day as well in 2009. I decided that with the economy in shambles, that I was going to figure out a way to actually turn things around and go after big banks. Because I blame the big banks for the mess that our economy was in. And I was just fortunate and lucky and had a lot of good help. But our case against Bank of America in 2014 was the largest civil recovery in U.S. history against a single defendant. And that's a big statement. There's no one who's recovered more money against a defendant than we have. People might win, a $20 billion award, but you can't collect it. This is recovery. We collected $16.7 billion from Bank of America. That led me to writing a book, became a bestseller on Amazon, and just led to so many more opportunities. That was in 2014, 6 years later. Still riding that wave.
To think I knew you when. And during that same time frame, I, of course, was going through my legendary divorce, and there were some bleak times in Milwaukee. And I'm glad that, like anything else, I'm a real proponent of finding the darkest days and finding that opportunity that's there, and really, connecting with that and going after it. And I'm thrilled to see what you've done. You haven't, of course, rested on your laurels. You just kept this whole ball moving and moving. You've got tremendous momentum behind you now.
I mean, obviously I could retire, but I love what I do.
Yep.
I enjoy doing what I do.
Yep.
So I get up every morning and do it. I'm 62. I'll be 62 this week. So we'll call it 62.
September
now.
11th, as I recall. Yeah.
Yes, 9/11.
Yeah.
And I'm slowing down a little bit, but slowing down for me is working 60 hours a week instead of 90 hours a week. That's slowing down. It's like you.
Yep.
You and I met, as you said, in dark times. The economy in Milwaukee was in shambles. You were going through a divorce. The firm that I was with disbanded. And here I was, 1,000 miles from home in Maine, having to start from scratch. So I figured if I'm going to start from scratch, I'm just going to build what I want to build. And I did, and I enjoy it, and here I am today.
Well, and again, I'm glad to see you, but I'm mostly glad to see that you continue on, not just with the legal profession, but it's how you are marketing this and really capturing a magnificent segment that has been left unattended for so long. And attorneys are obviously very intelligent people that are mostly focused on what they do. It's like a one direction kind of thing. They're myopic.
Say it for what it is. Most attorneys, not all obviously, but most attorneys are crappy business people. They may be great at the law, and what we've managed to do is find some great attorneys that couldn't find work if their life depended on it, but they're so good at what they do, and we've just sort of built a model off of those attorneys. We find the best of the best all over the United States. Our firm is a completely different model from most. So I like to tell people that we have offices across the United States. That's somewhat true. We hire the best people where they are, and there is a physical office here. There's a back office support, there's paralegals, there's finance staff and whatnot. But if you're living in Alaska and you're the best at what you do, I'm going to hire you. And you're going to become part of the team, and we'll just figure it out. And most lawyers don't think that way. If you tell them, I mean, we're in southeast Wisconsin here, if you tell them you have a great case in Chicago, they're like, oh, that's in a different state, I can't do that. Even if you tell them there's a great case in Green Bay, they say, no, I only stay in the 5-county area. And why? We have so many virtual tools now, so we've just changed that business model and turned it upside down.
Well, what I, again, especially like about that is that you had the foresight to do that 10 years before it became a virtual world. You were chomping at that door before. As I recall, the technology wasn't quite there for either one of us at that point, but you found a way to kind of make that work on the early side and to stay on top of that whole thing and to craft this and kind of make it your own thing. And it's a beautiful thing that you got. And now everybody, because of COVID and other things, technology advancing, and obviously the futurists are right, because the world shall never be what it was 5 years ago, and in 10 years it'll be completely different. But much of that is predicated upon the Zoom mentality, or the ability just to, you're on a meeting call and suddenly you're talking to Barcelona or something else with the same fervor, and you get things done without having to get on a jet and fly there.
Yeah, but we've been doing this for 10 years. We were ahead of and hopefully we're ahead of the next change, whatever that next change may be.
Well, I guess that'll be the next thing, is that what do you anticipate taking place in the new world in the next 3 years, the next 5 years? How do you envision that to be different from what it is today?
Well, a lot of people are never going to go back into the office full time.
Right.
You're going to see law firms have people come in now 2 or 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week. Unfortunately, lawyers still aren't the best business people in the world. They still don't think outside the box. They think in geographic terms instead of, hey, there's a great case in Los Angeles, why can't I handle it from here?
Global
or if I need to, I'll just hire 2 or 3 lawyers that I need to staff it. And one of my former partners is another friend of yours, is doing basically the same thing. I mean, both of us created our own, I don't want to say a virtual firm. His firm is virtual. We're a blend. We have a back office support operation, a pretty robust operation. But we both were ahead of the curve, and we've done well.
Extremely well. So, and that's only going to continue that way. Less contact, I'd imagine, even with clients. And at some point, I can imagine a court being set up the same way, where you don't have to make an appearance to litigate, that somehow, some way, you can have both opinions that are presented via World Wide Web.
I still think for jury trials, you're going to have, there have been a couple jury trials so far, and the reaction from the jurors and the lawyers is it's not the same. It's harder to make eye contact when you have 12 different people on your Zoom screen. And that would be bad if we didn't have jury trials, or we had jury trials virtually. But I think by and large, the regular hearings where it's just a couple lawyers arguing and a judge, just doing it virtual is the way to go. And you'll see more of it.
Which overall should reduce costs for the courts as well, right?
True.
Don't need a bailiff there.
Don't need a bailiff. And it makes a global practice much more feasible. I mean, we've been doing it forever,
Right.
but we only take very, very large cases. I
Sure.
couldn't afford to do a smaller case if I had to go out and get on a plane
Right.
constantly.
Right.
So for the cases that we do, they're $100 million cases. It's easier to do, but if it was a small case, it wouldn't make sense.
So then, at that point, do the fees change? Do the settlement size change because you don't have the extraneous cost like you do? Obviously, you still need the back office to get things moving, and you need the filings there. But some of your fixed costs right now would just disappear, right?
But our fixed costs have always been lower because we didn't invest in real estate. So many of the what I call silk stocking law firms have huge investments in infrastructure.
Grandiose structures, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have the beautiful view on the top floor of the U.S. Bank building, but their clients are paying for that.
Right.
Somebody's paying for that.
That whole template from the L.A. law, the Boston legal, in my mind, is gone. It really is. So you can't substantiate that.
But the firms don't want to let go.
Well, of course not. It's been not a gravy train, but it's been a really nice ride for them, sure.
And you saw this year that a lot of the larger law firms have started cutting pay. And now last week, one of the largest firms in the United States, Skadden Arps, announced layoffs, and immediately a lot of other firms did it. No one wanted to be first, but as soon as one did it, then they all started announcing layoffs. They can't sustain that model, and the clients don't want to pay for that model either.
Which I'm a little bit surprised at because we've talked to some other financial people, obviously not attorneys, about this subject, but there has to be just a record number of divorces and reorganizations and bankruptcies that, if not are taking place already, are going to be taking place in the very near future, the way the economy is stuttering.
Well, so we don't try to be a law firm for all purposes.
Right.
Some of the larger firms, they do everything.
Right.
We try to do just a few things and do them really well. And one of the things that we do is we represent large property owners. And we have a lot of our clients are hotel chains and shopping centers. And they are still surviving, they're still paying their bills, but I don't see the economy snapping back. I don't see people traveling right away. Even though I'm traveling, you can't travel internationally. You're not getting the international visitors, and a lot of people are still afraid, and a lot of people have health concerns and they don't want to travel. A vaccine will change that a little bit, but it's not going to bounce back. It's going to take years to bounce back. Particularly for hotels and shopping malls. Unfortunately, a lot of people have just adjusted to online shopping now, and I don't think that's going to bounce back fully.
Oh, I agree. I think that retail is pretty much dead, as we know it with the brick and mortar store.
But a lot of the brick and mortar stores are hanging on, a lot of the hotels are hanging on, but they can't sustain for a long time. So there's not a lot of hotel chains going under now, or hotel groups going under, I should say, or shopping centers, but I think they can hang on for 6 more months. And a lot of office buildings, when leases expire, companies are not going to get, they're going to go from 5,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet.
I don't know if you've seen it yet, but BMO Harris has this beautiful new structure opposite City Hall that they completed maybe in March.
Yeah, we have 2 beautiful buildings. We have Northwest Mutual and BMO.
Gorgeous. So the new BMO building, but they already anticipate that half that building will never be used. So, and it just came online. But again, they should have had the foresight to anticipate some part of that as well. They didn't. And you just think about, obviously Milwaukee was hard hit by the DNC because it's something that's been in motion for a couple of years, and major developers have come here. We have a flurry of new hotels everywhere. We have all sorts of development around the Deere Center, the Fiserv Forum Center, that will never be actualized because there's no reason to. You're not going to have that 50,000 people converging every single weekend or something else. We're not New Orleans, we're not Vegas, right? So this is one city that I'd anticipate a lot of those hotel developers to go south. Probably November, December, that's going to be that for them. And then shortly thereafter, I mean, New Orleans is not open for bars, so I think that's going to happen there as well. Major tourist city, but you can't go anywhere and do anything. And then probably Vegas is suffering quite a bit too.
No, but convention business will come back.
Okay.
I'm going to my first convention in October that's actually being held. It hasn't been canceled.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it's not going to be canceled at this point. It's in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
So I think the convention cities will survive,
Okay.
but the Milwaukees are going to have a tough time.
Which is really a shame because Milwaukee has so much going for it. The beautiful lakefront, just the dynamic food scene until COVID came, of course. And we really were coming into our own again after years as the Rust Belt situation. It's evolved very nicely. There's tremendous investment all around us for retail, for condos, for almost everything except for old buildings like the one right across the street from us. So that is...
I don't even know what's there. It used to be a carpet.
Right, it used to be a
place.
carpet thing. That's been gone now for 6 years, I think. So in my mind, there are still these areas that have this little blight thing going on. And the city, for whatever reason, has been slow to move them forward, claim eminent domain, to do something to clean those up. So we have this little contradiction taking place where you've got major development and then you've got these things as well.
Yeah, but you also, sitting here, I can see 2 brand new
Yep, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
residential buildings
Yep.
too. So that's helped.
It has. It really has.
I think that partially because of COVID and partially because of some of the unrest, that you're going to see major cities, especially cities that are what I call blue cities, Mayor Tom Barrett being one, where you're going to see a net outflow of people. And you're already seeing it in Chicago, you're seeing it in New York City, you're seeing property values go down, you're seeing the property values in the suburbs going up. And it's a shame because I love America's cities and we have not managed change very well.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about the Democratic cities and the unrest taking place today, how big of an impact is the unrest going to have upon those Democratic cities maintaining their Democratic control right now? In other words, how big of a shift do you think is going to take place in November?
So I am not a very political person,
Right.
but if you ask people, if I were to come in here on Saturday night and go right down the bar and ask people who they were voting for, I think most people would say Biden, 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 Biden. I think at the in the privacy of the ballot box, a lot of people won't. It is hard. You can't trust the polling numbers.
No.
So it's hard to predict. I just don't know because I just think the polling numbers are skewed. There's such this atmosphere now or attitude of orange man bad
Right.
that people don't like. They don't like the 2 a.m. tweets from the president. They don't like some of the horrible things he said in the past about women. But damn, he did a decent job on the economy, and that's hard to get around. And I think that's how people are going to vote. And I think he is more of a law and order person than Biden. I think the only reason Biden came to Kenosha is because Trump came to Kenosha.
Right. He couldn't be bothered to come to Milwaukee to accept the nomination for the DNC, for gosh sakes, but he would go there for that.
So it's so hard to predict.
So do you think that there will be a vast number of people that just won't vote this time because they don't like either option?
A lot depends on how mail-in voting. We don't have a lot of experience with mail-in ballots, so I don't know what those numbers are going to look like. The mail-in votes, I think, will go more to... The Republicans tend to go out and vote. When Obama was running, I think a lot of younger people that were looking for change, particularly in the first election, I think a lot of the African-American people, they actually went out and voted. This election, you're going to see a lot more mail-in votes, both because of the COVID problem and because there's just not the excitement. Let's face it, there's not a lot of excitement over Biden or Trump. It's almost... The excitement is anti. I am anti-Trump, or I am just can't stand what I perceive to be the Democrats are doing to the economy.
I agree. So do you think there's a possibility for a valid third party in 2024?
But we were talking about the other attorney that I used to work for, or work with, my old partner, Bob Barnes.
Sure.
He and I have been representing in the United States the independent candidate for president in ballot contests. Because to run as an independent, you have to go out and get signatures. You don't have the party caucus system. And for many states, like we just did the case in Maine and we were successful there, you had a governor who said you were on strict lockdown. You had a certain period of time to go collect 6,000 signatures, but you weren't allowed out of the house. There was no exception for going and collecting signatures. And even if you were at grocery stores, people were afraid to
Yep. Interact
approach
with you. Of course.
So
Yeah.
we've been successful, but I see the time is now for a third party, but I don't think it'll be this election
Okay.
cycle.
Okay. And you're certainly not endorsing Kanye 2020.
Is he even on the ballot anywhere? I don't even know.
Maybe a few places. So.
Yeah, I should have hired us if he wanted to be on
There
the
you
ballot.
go. There you go. Cool. So the world obviously continues to evolve, continues to change. We have self-driving cars. I happen to have one. Obviously, the insurance industry is going to be dramatically affected and almost non-existent then, because satellites will control where people drive and accidents will be by and large gone. So you have an awful lot of displaced people. You have, again, autonomous vehicles coming that'll be driving freight back and forth, so those poor semi-drivers will be displaced. What's going to happen in 5 years to all those people that are doing average jobs?
Well, I don't have that crystal ball, but I see change as a wonderful time for opportunity. A lot of people are scared.
Yep.
They're scared to death over change. And big law firms should be scared to death over change. I embrace it because I view every one of those changes as an opportunity. When you have big change, you have big opportunity.
I could not concur more. But the average person obviously does not think that way. And we are a country, as all societies are, of average people, right?
We are.
And they don't know, they don't have the means or the knowledge or the drive to create an opportunity or to sense an opportunity or to capitalize on an opportunity. So what's the average person going to do? I don't expect you to have an answer for that, but...
I don't have the answer for it. I'm hoping that the world is a better place because of all of these changes, and the average person doesn't have to work 70 or 80 hours like you and I have to enjoy life. I mean, let's face it, you work many, many, many long hours in this place, and I've worked many long hours.
Yep.
I'm hoping the next generation may be able to reap the benefits without working long hours. Of course, there's some people that don't want to work at all. These are the people that are rioting in the cities now.
Well, they have time to protest.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the protests. It's the people that are out there rioting. It's ridiculous.
Right. Our country obviously is predicated upon protest, so exchange of ideas is a good thing. Dissent is a good thing. Rioting, not a good thing. Which I think, by the way, is going to work against the Democratic Party, because those same cities, states have allowed these things to take place without clamping down on them. And I think that at the end of the day, people whose property has been destroyed or lives are shattered or something else because of the riots are not going to be sympathetic to the alleged Democratic cause and just the freedoms with which people have been allowed to destroy things. So I do think that, the Andrew Yang concept is pretty cool. If you could have that type of sustainability, that people could enjoy this futuristic utopian concept of not working and enjoying quality of life issues, that's great. But it's a fantasy. It's just not going to happen.
No, and I think people expect to be able to not work at all, and that's I'm hoping that people can work less, but people are still going to have to work. And there's a generation now that has a different work ethic than you and I.
Tremendously.
I read an article over the weekend that most young people are living in their parents' home, and the average age when people move out is incredible. I mean, look, I only went to 2 years of high school before I left for college. So I was still 15 for a week when I was in college, but people are staying at home now until they're 28. I read this and I said, this is just not possible.
It's bizarre. Or we're having to flash back to the old European days or something, and you continue on to get married, or maybe even after that point, right?
Yeah, people having babies much later too.
Yeah. Well, and we have a long ways to go to zero population, but we certainly are having a tremendous reduction in the birth rate, and as are other countries. So maybe that's a salvation for the human race at some point as well, because you have fewer people on this rock using up the resource or something else. But I do think that, obviously people have, in my mind at least, a need to be social. We are social animals, to socialize, and also the creativity that takes place is really what drives the culture forward, drives the society forward. Same thing with the music we're listening to. If you don't have that spark or the opportunity to do something and or people to listen to it, that's gone. And cultures are so dependent upon the arts, whatever that might be.
No, and in many states and many cities, we've pretty much shut down the arts.
Yep.
Try to find a live band in Milwaukee right now.
Pretty much non-existent.
But so many restaurants haven't even opened, and I don't understand it. It's just because we've created that fear, and the first to suffer is art. Museums close, the bands don't play, you can't see live music, can't go to sporting events.
Let alone, not that we're big on poetry readings, but there are always some poetry readings, and now that's gone as well. The old style coffee shop, the Jack Kerouac days, that's long gone, right? And that will never come back. And I just published something because a few years ago, this week, I just gotten back from Cuba, one of my times, and I had talked about you are there having just an espresso in the morning, which is my daily routine there, and you could interact if you chose to with a variety of people. You go to Starbucks now and you sit down and you try to interact with someone, get out of here. Nobody wants anything to do with you. So our culture is not wired the same way to enjoy the peaceful human interactions.
But this is why Shakers does so well.
Well,
because this is not a Starbucks, this is not a coffee shop. This is a place where people still interact. It's really become an oasis because there is nothing else in Milwaukee. There was never anything else like it as far as cigar bars. I think at one time there was a second cigar bar, but it really wasn't.
right.
But it's always been an oasis where if you want to have a good conversation, you come in here. You never know who you meet in here.
Well, that's kind of how this has evolved because people like you that have spent time in Milwaukee or from Milwaukee but have done really cool things have come back and talked to me about just the state of the world or the things that they're doing or something else. And you could walk into a lot of joints and you just don't get any part of that whatsoever. And there's, whether it's the major politicians, the entertainers, standouts in the medical legal profession, professors, you get really cool people here. And the common man, who can interact with everybody.
Very true.
It's a really neat experience here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity I've had the last 30 years.
Yeah, I watched this place evolve from it's evolved, but at the same time it has the same core. The inside, as the lighting has changed and little things like that, but it relies on the patrons and it relies on the staff.
The soul has remained.
Yes, the soul has remained. Good term.
Yeah, and of course the spirits have remained as well. So there was a period that we made significant modifications and refreshing during the COVID-cation we had. What else to do, right? So I reinvested in the property. We kept the staff occupied doing things here, and I was concerned at one point that we were going to lose some of the spirits, and it got really quiet here for a month while we're doing things. But then we reopened, everything's back, everyone's back. It's a nice thing. So.
Well, you're still. When I was here, your ghost tours were both sold out, both tours. So you're obviously
on a Sunday night.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You're still filling up. So
yeah.
There must still be spirits here. People are coming back or coming for the tours.
Yeah, and they're showmen. I think more or less the spirits like the interaction because whatever it might be is cold and dark and insular, and here they have a chance to be something other than that. So, yeah. Yeah. So when you do drink, I know you don't drink much anymore, but I think cognac is your thing, right?
Cognac is my thing. It's hard to find good cognac. Most restaurants, even high-end restaurants, they don't have a good selection.
No. Cognac, I've seen in the 40 years that I've been in this industry, I've seen swings where it comes and goes and comes and goes. It never goes very far, by the way. And then, of course, a few years ago, there was the entire Hennessy concept going on that attracted a different clientele, so they expanded line extension, right? But that doesn't seem to sustain itself either. So I don't know what it is about cognac. I think it's a marvelous spirit. It is so heady, and it's
very complex.
It is.
But you have to, it's an acquired taste. It's not, yeah, it's different. And so I've never been into whiskeys, but
Right.
the one attraction of here is you've always had good bourbons, good whiskeys.
Well, I got you on rum for a while.
I still drink a good rum every now and then.
Okay.
Usually my favorite, it's not the most expensive, but it's still a high end, is the Florida Cana 18 or the 23 year.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yep.
And I started drinking that while I was living here. I was on a trip with some of your customers here down to Panama, and that's where I found Florida Cana, and that's when I started the fascination with rum. But so I'll still have rum, and I'll have a cognac every now and then. Just never got into the whiskeys or the bourbons.
So I think you mentioned something about Portugal the other day.
Yes.
When you think about going? It's closed off now, but
I was thinking this was the year that I was either going to buy a place in Portugal on the coast or build a home in Maui. But the travel restrictions to Maui are impossible. You have to quarantine for 14 days in your hotel, and Portugal isn't exactly welcoming to Americans, nor is Europe in general.
No.
So all of that's on hold for another year.
Well, when you go, please give me a heads up. I'd be honored to fly out there and spend a couple days kicking around and see.
You can help me look for a
seeing
spot.
the sights
Yeah.
with you. Sure. Cool.
You're still going to Cuba, obviously. You just talked about.
I can't until the it opens up again on the 20th, and I'm not
I'm
sure.
surprised Cuba's shut.
Well, they're actually the best medical system in Central South America and the islands, and in some ways, they've got some really cool cancer cures that we don't have here. Yeah. Anyway, they are shut, and on the 20th. But I'm not sure what the criteria is going to be to get back down. So, I think that the last week of this month, I'll probably just bop down to Key West and spend a couple days hanging out there, get myself tuned up before the October season begins for us. Because even though it's COVID, it's going to be a madhouse. I can see the way the tours are filling right now. We'll be incredibly busy.
It was packed in here on a Sunday night, so that's a good thing.
It is. It is. The city wants to shut things down again. There's talks about that. I
don't think a city can anymore.
Well,
I think people have tasted too much of
freedom.
we all shut down for 2 weeks, then it became 4 weeks, then it became 6. Wisconsin was even
3
longer.
months.
But
3 months.
I live in Texas now, and we all did it. And we all thought it was the right thing to do, and then we realized, why are we doing this? So Texas was reopened, and yes, the COVID went way up in Arizona and Florida and Texas, but the death rate has gone down. We have more cures now, and we're more careful with nursing home patients. So the death rate has gone way down, and most people say, all right, I want to live my life. You can't keep me locked up for months and months and months and months. And there are cities, your mayor here in Milwaukee being one of them, that just, they've lost the perspective. It's if we have to shut down an entire economy and put everybody out of work and bankrupt everybody to save one life, it's worth it. And there's no sense of balance. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be careful. I mean, I have a mask in my pocket, and when I'm in a store, crowded place or something, I wear it.
Sure.
On an airplane, you have to wear it. But by and large, there are some cities that have gone overboard. It's not just your city, it's your governor here too.
Well, yes.
There's Los Angeles, Wisconsin, Michigan, Maine, they just seem to have gone overboard.
Well, apparently Madison had a lot of destruction last night from rioters, yet again. And, the city is called back, and law enforcement can't use tear gas. They can't use any baton to strike anybody. They can't use rubber bullets. Why would police get engaged anymore? What can you possibly do?
Well, you know that I was a police officer for many years.
Right.
This has to be the worst time ever to be a cop. And I think the people, particularly people in inner city, like cops. Yes, there are bad cops out there, and we need to do something about bad cops. But nobody wants to talk about this, especially some of the mayors of big cities. But the worst crime rate isn't over here in the 5th Ward or on the east side. The worst crime rate is in the inner cities. And it's by and large, African American and African American crime, and nobody wants to talk about that. But people in those neighborhoods, I was a cop in New Orleans. People in those neighborhoods, criminal element didn't like us, but the people who lived there, the people who had to raise a family there, loved us.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
now it's almost impossible to be a cop. And a lot of the cops I know just have this attitude, we're going to put in our 8 hours and see nothing, do nothing, because I'm so afraid of...
The interaction.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Interesting times. I hope.
Pendulum has swung too far. We do need reforms. I believe in those reforms.
Yes.
They're overdue, but the pendulum has swung too far.
Yes. I think rather than defund the police, we have to obviously fund more things for mental health. Probably the biggest problem facing our society, which is only exacerbated by being stuck in this vacuum for 3 months and or more, and your life's being completely debased and turned upside down. You can't interact with your family. You can't go to weddings. You can't go to funerals. You can't visit people in hospitals. Terrible.
I could tell you moved to Texas, but I would hate to see this place close, so you have to stay here. So I have a place to visit.
Well, we're in really good hands now with Brianna running this, so I think, and I've got a great sous chef I brought in from Pittsburgh. I didn't like the labor pool here. I've been kicking that around for a while, so I went outside the city and I found just a great sous. So I think I can, once the airports are open again for me and I can fly around a bit, I'm getting my butt out of here for a while to go back to seeing the world. So maybe Texas,
Yeah.
I like Austin, for God's
Well,
sakes.
you opened a place in Savannah, and it's interesting because Georgia was the first state to reopen.
Right.
And at the time, the media was convinced that everybody was just going to die.
Die.
It would be,
Drop in the tracks.
bodies piled up in
Yeah.
vans and refrigerated
Sure.
trucks, and it didn't happen.
Right.
Yes, the COVID rate went up, but somehow we survived, and Savannah is booming.
Yep.
Right now. I was just there 3 weeks ago.
I need new management in Savannah for our tour company, and unfortunately, that's one of the downsides about being 1,000 miles away.
And not being able to travel
and
very
not
easily.
being able to travel, right? So, but it'll come back, and then maybe we'll expand. Maybe I'll open something in Austin as well. I really like Austin.
Yeah, I never get to Austin. So I'm an hour west of San Antonio, and I
Sure.
go to San Antonio. But San Antonio is not Austin. Austin
No.
is a music city. It's a food city. It's a business city, too. San Antonio, I believe, is the 11th largest city in the United States, but
Oh,
there's
wow.
no downtown. There's no business district. There's
Sure.
not a lot of food. It's just one giant residential city.
And a river walk.
And Riverwalk, yep.
Yep.
And military. It's Military
Yep,
City,
yep,
USA,
yep,
but
yep.
you will be much better off in Austin. Much better appreciated in Austin. And you'll be an hour and a half away.
There you go.
I didn't know you had a place in Savannah. I was just in Savannah, and that would have been the first stop I made. But
Well, it's a tour company. It's not a bar restaurant. But I did, oddly enough, I did purchase a commercial pizza oven because I couldn't find one down there. So I said, what they really seem to need, is a really good pizza. And how simplistic. But as I traveled around the world, inevitably at some point, people just want to have a pizza. And there's a place in Tulum, they got to sign up, best pizza in the world, and it's a cat who left Italy, and he opened up, and it's a really good pie. And at some point, no matter what culture you're in, that pizza sounds awfully good, just that one day, right? So now in Savannah, you go, they could not make a good pizza down south to save their lives. Florida's the same way. I have not had a good pizza experience. So to open that in Savannah, and I looked at some properties, I was ready to pull the pin, but of course, COVID came.
yep.
So here we are.
The pizza cities in the United States are New York,
Yep.
Chicago, and Milwaukee, and they all have a different style.
Yep.
Very few people are familiar with the cracker crust pizza
Yep.
in Milwaukee, but if you get the right pizza here, obviously, there's a couple other places in the city,
Yep.
it's great.
Yep. Fundamental. Cool. So I see you're not smoking a cigar right now. Every once in a while that you used to. Do you anymore?
When I go to Cuba, I smoke a cigar because somehow, I know that sounds cliche, but I feel like if I'm in Havana, I have to have a glass of rum and I have to have a cigar.
No place like Cuba.
When I did my first photo shoot, it was in here. We talked about this before we started recording. And still to this day, on one of my websites, you'll see the picture of me, cigar in hand, and a glass of rum. So So there's certain places you have to smoke a cigar.
All your old partners from the not aforementioned firm have done their shoots here, and they've all got a cigar in their hand as well. And obviously that was the time of the Boston Legal, so it was the rigor, right? It was the thing to do. But really, this is so relaxing, and this opens the door for so many of those conversations we talked about a few minutes ago. There's a commonality. And I would suggest that in the 30-some years that I've been here doing this thing, I have seen more high-level business deals get closed here and contracts consummated here than I've ever seen on a golf course. And it's just, there's
very true.
There's
very
a
true.
conviviality that goes on here, and it's a relaxed atmosphere, and it works. It gels.
And it feels home.
It does feel home.
I can't remember that TV show that took place in Boston where, Cheers, that's what it was. I mean, this is a completely different atmosphere, but the one commonality is when you walk in here, whether you've been gone for a week or been gone for years like I have, it's walking into home, and you'll see familiar faces. And everybody knows your name.
Well,
not everybody. You have a fair amount of tourists that have come, but they're an interesting group.
The human element is exquisite. Now, this little thing that we're doing here, we've got 80-some-odd videos that are up on YouTube that we started doing about 3 months ago.
Yeah, I didn't know that until you told me last night, so I have to...
Well, we're cranking. Well, you're not on social media, so you wouldn't see the stuff posted, and I've been remiss sending you an email. And now we've been picked up for podcasts by iHeartRadio. We have other formats as well, so we're heard globally with these wacky things. So it has opened up other avenues for us, and I've got a couple scripts ready to go for some movie type things, so little shorts. And I know I can see kind of a movement as this has continued so well. We're going to have 200 of these published by the end of the year, and we're certainly on schedule for that.
I'm glad I can be part of it.
Man, I'm honored that you're here. But this opens up other doors, and I think that we kind of continue the line extension for Shakers, and for Hangman Tours, and for A-Loos Foods, and whatever else. It just keeps rolling. So,
do you still cook at all here?
I've been cooking an awful lot. So the last 2 nights I haven't been. I did get a chance to cook before you came in. We shot a segment on Portuguese beef, and we did integrated that with baked egg as well. So something I've had when I was digging Miss Rhode Island, and I experienced some things in Providence. And which for whatever reason is the largest grouping of Portuguese in the U.S. is in Providence, Rhode Island. So, who knew?
I knew that, actually.
Well, you would live there, of course. In Maine,
I lived in Maine.
You would know.
I would always go down. I would sometimes drive all the way down to Rhode Island, three and a half hour trip, just for I'm trying to remember the kind of sausage, linguica, something like that.
Yep.
Couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yep.
You find it anywhere in Rhode Island. It was worth the trip.
Yeah, I can't think of the name. There's a real cool little after hours hamburger and hot dog thing that's set up in Providence, not far from the city hall. That it just has lines outside every night.
Probably closed for COVID.
I'm sure it is. My God, you think about brunches. So the brunch world has changed forever from COVID. The old days of the salad buffet thing, that's gone forever.
You can find a buffet in Texas. They're open.
Texas is its own place. Yeah, kind
the
of like
the requirement is you have to put on a fresh pair of gloves when you go up, which is not bad. I mean, and when I was just in Vegas a month ago, the buffet was open at the Wynn, but you can't get the food. You can tell it's why bother? Why bother having a buffet? Because I can't pick the crab leg that I want, or I can't.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
No.
They're trying to do the buffet concept, and it just fails.
One of the things that Milwaukee wants to do, and it's interesting because our health commissioner, Jeanette, has just left to take a position in D.C., so she ran out of town as fast as she could. But they want to have partitions at the bar. Well, they don't want bars to be open first and foremost, right? So fortunately, we're a restaurant and a cigar bar. But you can't sit at a bar in their concept. They want to have plexiglass there. So I'm the bartender. Here's the plexiglass. You want a cocktail. I can't even serve you the cocktail, right? Because they don't want people to sit at bars, because bars are the worst thing ever as far as COVID goes. It's just bizarre to me.
No, the governor in Maine just required these face shields, but it's the Elizabethan dog collar thing where it goes up in restaurants. Who wants to go to a restaurant when your server is wearing this plexiglass cone around their head, and you have to have a mask too? It's just we're doing everything we can to kill the business community. We forget how people are employed and how people are making money.
Well, they're in their ivory towers. And you know what? Another thing that kind of slays me about this is that our esteemed Mayor Tom Barrett, really a super nice guy, but really clueless, has done all of his video conferences from his house, with very few exceptions. So he himself doesn't go out to see what's happening in the world or what's not happening in the world, right? He just lives in his house. He's perfectly content at his 75
Sounds
years
like
old or something.
a presidential candidate. I'm trying not to be political.
No. It's hard not to speak facts, but yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the Hollywood elitists too are just living in their own bubble. It's easy to say we should do this and we should do that, but they're not following their own requirements.
No.
Then we had the Speaker of the House who was caught without wearing a mask. We have a double standard in this country.
Well, I think in her, think about Nancy Pelosi, I think that she obviously misspelled the word and thought it was really saloon, not salon. That's why she, okay.
Yeah, but they would close the saloons, so there's a patchwork in this country, and half of it makes no sense.
Right. I think that some of that is going to change or abate after November 4th.
I didn't share this story with you. I shared it with Patrick last night. I maintain a car here. Not that I'm here very often, but I keep a car here.
Sure.
And I went to a car wash.
Okay.
A drive-through car wash.
Sure.
Middle of the night, you put your credit card in and you just drive through.
Yeah.
There was actually a sign saying you were required to wear a mask. I'm thinking, welcome to Wisconsin. This makes no sense whatsoever. What are you protecting me from?
I've talked about this in the past, that you see a number of people driving by themselves in their vehicle with a mask on, right? It's like wearing a condom in bed by yourself, right? It makes no sense to me. But this last 2 weeks, I've seen a lot of people in convertibles with a mask on as they're riding down the road. I'm like, this is just beyond bizarre. So, here we are.
Yeah, and the states that are closing their parks, people need exercise. You're not going to get coronavirus outside. And Texas did it for a while too, for 6 weeks. My property abuts a 4,500 acre state park.
Okay.
And it's a wilderness park. There's not ball fields or anything like that.
Sure.
And for a while they decided to open the park, but restrict it to 25% capacity and require a mask. I'm thinking, this is wilderness. You could walk through that park for 8 hours and never see a person.
What is the capacity, by the way, if it's 25%? How do they determine what a capacity in force be? Okay.
I have my own private gate into the state park, so I just...
the outlier, okay.
But even that, they said that I still had to go and check in. I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And there's nobody to enforce it, but it's just the crazy thinking. I get when there's people just packed where you can't even move on a beach, but even then, the virus isn't spreading outside from everything we know. When we had all of the protests, it's now been over 3 months, we didn't have huge increases in infection rates for things that were happening outside.
Sure. Let's switch gears a little bit. So your favorite all-time meal or meals, where?
My favorite all-time meal depends on what that meal is.
Well, what's your criteria?
So breakfast is here in Wisconsin, North Point Grill.
Okay.
Late night, pizza here.
Okay.
Dinner, I'm going to tell you Carrabba's and you're going to laugh at me, but the original Carrabba's, not the corporate chain that you think of now, the old man still has his original restaurant in Houston. He sold the name, sold the rights. He doesn't run the chain. He has his restaurant, best place for veal.
Cool.
Those are my three favorites.
Excellent.
I don't have a favorite lunch place.
In New Orleans would be mine for that. I like that.
So for Cajun food, it's K. Paul's for me, not Brennan's.
Okay. Which is closed now, by the way, permanently.
When did that close? It was
announcement, I think, came out in May.
Okay, because I was there at Christmas. I spent
Okay.
Christmas Day at Cape Paul's.
Okay.
I didn't know. That's a loss to New Orleans.
Well, Paul died, 3 years ago,
Yep.
2 or 3 years ago, and they've kept it going. I've been there since. It wasn't quite the same, but it was still a fine place to be. But they're done. And I thought momentarily about maybe looking into that and acquiring that, but again, how can I? So.
Yeah, well, New Orleans is another city that is just completely.
Yep,
Shut down.
devastated. Yep. Okay, your favorite city in the world?
Favorite city in the world, believe it or not, is New Orleans. I mean, that's probably because I live there, but New Orleans is my favorite city. San Francisco at one point in time was number 2, but that place is, I'll be polite in what I say because this is recorded, but it's bad what you see on the streets right now. That city has gone to hell in just 10
Yep.
years.
Yep.
I don't think it would be on anybody's favorite list anymore.
No, what a travesty too. I had so many good experiences there, but that's just all done.
Outside the United States, Rome.
Busy place.
It is. I love Rome, but in the United States, New Orleans. And not the French Quarter either, but
Oh no, I mean just look at the way the CBD has grown, for God's sake. That central business district is extraordinary. There's so much, once you get outside of the quarter itself, the old world opulence, just the beauty, the magnificence, the people are so wonderful. Yep, I agree.
where's your favorite city?
Internationally, I would say Barcelona. Though I'm really a fan of the country of Cuba and Havana, but I think Barcelona would be the city that I'd want to be at. City in the country, I'm big on Savannah, obviously. I'm big on New Orleans. And I, too, used to be really big on San Francisco.
Barcelona was a disappointment
Okay.
for me. I've been there. I went there in 2015, and I was just a beautiful city, but I was just disappointed. Havana's not ready for prime time yet. There's some wonderful aspects of Havana, but it's just not ready for. And you want to get there right at the right time, because once it becomes a tourist destination, it'll be ruined. But it's too early now. It just hasn't hit its sweet spot yet. That's my opinion.
I agree, and unfortunately, Fidel was the visionary, and he's been long gone, and it's been stumping along for a while. Obviously, his brother was the thug of the family, no vision whatsoever, and Diaz can't quite decide where he wants to be. So they do have a ways to go, but still, if you are not opposed to roughing it a bit, you can have an extraordinary experience in Havana. But if you're looking for the Ritz or the Roosevelt, it's not there.
True.
Cool. Any closing thoughts?
I'm happy to be back here. I was so thrilled when I walked in here last night.
Again, I'm so thrilled to see you. I'm glad we caught up, and it has been a delight. Cheers, and
Yes.
I'll look forward to the next one.
Okay.
Brian, thanks for being with us. I look
Yes.
forward to our next installment.